What we're seeing right now is nothing short of historic for both XRP holders and Ethereum holders. The crypto market is moving in a way that's setting up what could be one of the biggest liquidity shifts of the decade. Ethereum is currently the center of attention. And when that happens, history tells us the rest of the altcoin market, especially XRP, doesn't just follow, it explodes. You're about to see why this moment is so critical and how what's happening with ETH today could directly spark the biggest XRP rally we've seen yet. This isn't financial advice. Right now, massive liquidity is pouring into Ethereum, and if you've been around this market long enough, you know what comes next. The whales, the institutions, they ride the wave until ETH hits their target. Then they redeploy that capital into the next big mover. That's when we see absolute pandemonium across the altcoin space. This is why I'm bringing this video to you today, because the signs are showing we are close, very close to that tipping point. And before we dive deep into what Tom Lee just revealed about Ethereum's trajectory and why it matters for XRP's next move, I need to put something huge in front of you. Down in the pinned comment, you can grab the Ultimate Millionaire Investor Guide, Find 100x Stocks. This is a full-loaded resource with documents, images, videos, and step-by-step insights to find the kind of investments that can change everything for you. It's designed to be so good, you'd be crazy to pass it up. And while you're there, also grab your free NVDA stocks up to $1,000 from a $100 deposit using my Moomoo link. That's a no-brainer play to get in position while you still can. Now, back to Ethereum. Just last week, ETH broke through $4,000. And as of this recording, it's sitting around $4,200. That completely obliterated the $4,000 price target Tom Lee predicted earlier this year. And while ETH run has been incredible, XRP has been quietly cooling off, pulling back just enough to set the stage for its own next leg up. This isn't a bearish sign. It's a textbook healthy correction before momentum builds again. Tom Lee's perspective here is fascinating. He pointed out that in the short term, ETH's fair value doesn't necessarily dictate its price. There are liquidation levels being targeted, traders running pair trades and short-term bets against ETH that end up fueling even more volatility. But here's the big takeaway. Lee believes ETH is having its Bitcoin 2017 moment right now, with Wall Street finally getting fully behind it. Why does that matter for XRP? Because this is exactly the setup we saw before in December. ETH hits a key high, institutional capital starts taking profit, and the next wave of liquidity flows into other top-tier altcoins. XRP is right at the front of that line. If ETH finds its top, likely within the next 30 days, there's a very real possibility of a tsunami's flow of capital crashing into XRP. This pattern isn't speculation. It's happened before. And when it happens fast. When the tide shifts, the liquidity doesn't trickle. It surges. We saw it in previous cycles, and the setup right now is eerily similar. But the story doesn't end with ETF's price action. Tom Lee went on to talk about the massive strategic importance of staking and treasury management in Ethereum's ecosystem. He compared ETF accumulation rates to what MicroStrategy has done with Bitcoin. In just 5 years, MicroStrategy grabbed 3.2% of BTC's circulating supply. Now imagine an entity like Bitmine doing the same thing for ETH, but at 12 times that pace. That's exactly what's happening. And it's happening under a fully compliant framework that Wall Street loves. Why? Because Wall Street wants their exposure to ETH done in a way that's legally airtight, transparent, and in line with US regulations. And as Lee pointed out, ETH isn't just another crypto. It's positioned to become the primary blockchain for tokenizing real-world assets from money markets to stocks. That's why the institutions are swarming. But here's where the pivot comes. Ethereum's tech is good, but it's not the pinnacle. It's not the most efficient. It's not the cheapest to transact on, and it's certainly not the fastest. Technologies like XRP's ledger offer unmatched efficiency, near instant settlement times, and ultra-low fees. For mass adoption, these are not optional. They are critical. Right now, Ethereum is the shiny object for Wall Street. They're piling in because it's the familiar name, the safe bet in the crypto space. But markets evolve. Once the hype dust settles and the real performance metrics are stacked side by side, capital starts to seek better tech. XRP's superior transaction speed, cost efficiency, and scalability make it the natural next step when institutions start reallocating. And here's the kicker. This reallocation could be accelerated by a single event: XRP spot ETF approvals. With September looking like a potential launch point for these ETFs, we could see retail investors flood in first, creating a spike in demand that institutions can't ignore. That's when the snowball effect kicks in. Liquidity compounds, price action explodes, and the cycle feeds on itself. Ethereum will always have its role, but it's not the endgame blockchain. It's the current staging ground. And while Wall Street is busy setting up shop there, the smart money will be eyeing the assets that can actually support a global financial system in real time. Assets like XRP. What's happening now isn't random. It's the same market psychology that's played out over and over. Liquidity concentrates, peaks, and then rotates. And when that rotation happens this time, XRP isn't just going to catch some spillover. It's primed to be the main target. Lee also emphasized that ETH treasury companies are critical infrastructure, not just passive investments. These are entities earning staking yields while serving as structural support for the network. But even that doesn't change the fact that XRP's ledger is better suited for certain high-volume, low-cost global transactions that ETH simply can't match efficiently. And when institutions start doing that math, they'll want exposure, not years from now, immediately. This is why the next 30 days are so pivotal. Every day ETH climbs, we get closer to the rotation point. And when it hits, the shift in capital could be one of the fastest and most violent we've seen in crypto history. I can keep going deeper into Tom Lee's insights, but the real takeaway is this. ETH's dominance right now is setting up XRP's launchpad. We've seen it before, and all the pieces are aligning for it to happen again. Only this time, the scale is bigger, the players are bigger, and the stakes are much higher. Now here's where it gets really interesting for XRP holders. Tom Lee's framing of Ethereum as the compliant Wall Street-friendly blockchain is spot on for the current moment, but the institutions loading up on ETH today are not doing so blindly. These are the same firms that rebalanced aggressively after Bitcoin's major runs in the past, and they will do it again here. When they've extracted maximum upside from Ethereum, they'll pivot fast to the next highest quality asset with the greatest asymmetric upside. That's when XRP will be standing in the spotlight. Think about what that means. Wall Street liquidity, hedge fund capital, and sovereign wealth money moving in en masse. These players don't enter small. They hit positions that move entire markets. And when you combine that kind of capital with the efficiency of the XRP ledger, it's a perfect storm for explosive price action. We saw hints of this back in December, exactly as Tom Lee reminded us. ETH topped, cooled, and suddenly XRP was ripping higher as liquidity spilled over. This time, the cycle is turbocharged. More ETF access, more compliant infrastructure, more public awareness, and a far bigger base of crypto investors ready to jump in. And let's not forget, the approval of an XRP spot ETF could serve as the spark that lights this entire fuse. Once retail sees that ticker available in their brokerage accounts, the inflows won't wait for headlines. They'll start immediately. Institutions will see that volume, interpret it as surging demand, and that will accelerate their entry. That's how a snowball turns into an avalanche. While Ethereum will still have its staking yields and tokenization plays, it's going to be difficult for ETH to keep outperforming once capital starts looking for the most efficient settlement layer on the planet. That's where XRP shines. You don't have to convince people about the tech when it's already doing in seconds what other chains take minutes or hours to settle. Tom Lee also pointed out that ETH treasury operations are more than just holding coins. They're building financial infrastructure. That's true. But XRP has the advantage of being purpose-built for high-speed, low-cost transfers at a global scale. The ledger's design isn't trying to be everything. It's trying to be the best at one thing: frictionless value transfer. And in a multi-trillion-dollar global payments market, that's exactly the kind of specialization that wins. And when you add the fact that capital markets are hungry for yield, XRP has a further edge. While ETH staking yields are attractive today, they can compress over time as more ETH is staked. Meanwhile, institutional use cases for XRP, from cross-border settlements to liquidity provisioning, can generate yield-like revenue streams in ways ETH simply can't replicate without Layer 2 complexity. We're talking about a world where XRP ETFs launch in parallel with increased institutional infrastructure, all while Ethereum's rally slows. That combination is the perfect rotation setup, and you can bet the biggest market makers and funds are already mapping it out. The reality is this: these moves happen fast. By the time the average investor sees the rotation, the bulk of the gains are often already underway. That's why preparation now is key. Speaking of preparation, if you haven't already scrolled down and grabbed the Ultimate Millionaire Investor Guide, find 100x stocks in the pinned comment. Do it now. This is a fully loaded package: documents, images, videos, packed with strategies and insights to uncover life-changing investment opportunities. It's not fluff. It's designed to give you tools you can actually apply right now. And while you're there, lock in your free NVDA stocks up to $1,000 from a $100 deposit using my Moomoo link. That's free equity in one of the hottest companies on the market, just for positioning yourself. Now, back to the market setup. We also need to acknowledge the speed at which sentiment can shift. The old cycles took months for capital to migrate from one major asset to another. In today's hyper-connected market with on-chain analytics, social sentiment tracking, and 24/7 global trading, that migration can happen in days or even hours. This is why the phrase, "a switch will be flipped," resonates so strongly with XRP holders. When the narrative shifts, it won't be a slow drip. It'll be an immediate pivot, and the players who move first will see the largest gains. What Tom Lee might not have spelled out directly, but is implied in everything he's saying, is that the race for dominance on compliant blockchains is just beginning. Ethereum might have the early advantage, but it's not immune to competitive displacement. The history of markets, from tech to finance, proves that early leaders often give way to better technology, and XRP's fundamentals are exactly what's needed for that next leap forward. The liquidity corridors Ripple has been building, the integration with financial institutions, the scalability of the ledger, all of these are positioned to capitalize on that incoming wave of capital once ETHF's run slows. We're looking at a setup where Ethereum tops out, liquidity floods into XRP, ETFs open the door for mass retail entry, and institutional demand locks in for the long haul. That's not a fantasy scenario. It's the same cycle we've seen in different forms across multiple markets, now amplified by the speed and transparency of crypto. The bottom line, the window to position before this rotation starts is shrinking every day ETH climbs higher. Every percentage point ETH gains brings us closer to the pivot, and when that pivot happens, XRP is likely to be one of the biggest beneficiaries. And the moment that shift begins, it will not wait for anyone to catch.